looks like we're live streaming.
Great. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Ed Transformation and Finance Committee. As you know, our meetings are open to the public. The agenda and material are posted online. The public can watch us live, or they can watch us from YouTube. The purpose of this committee is really to support and facilitate the successful implementation of the State Board Strategic Plan, the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, and to provide advice and recommendations on matters related to school finance and budget. Our meetings are again open to the public. However, a portion of our meeting will be in executive session, and that is going to be because we will be addressing FY26 budget requests, our budget request. That's embargoed information that we can't share. The first part of the meeting, though, we're going to have a discussion of MCAP. We're going to take a look at what has been provided by the department, provide some additional suggestions or additional items that we would like to have the department work on and have ready for our meeting. The first portion of our meeting may last about 20 to 30 minutes as we dive into MCAP, and then we will go into executive session, as I mentioned, to discuss the FY26 budget request. Again, members of the public, we appreciate you joining us, and thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. I want to also thank MSDE, the MSDE staff, for providing the necessary information. And also want to recognize a new board member, Ms. Medina. We're going to be a lot better on the state board because you joined. So we're excited about it. Excited about having you join us. This is a good group of folks, and I think we really look forward to your contributions, your ideas, your suggestions. This is a great group.
I appreciate the welcome. Thank you.
Okay. All righty. So what we'll do now is I'm going to ask MSDE, I guess, is that who's going to be leading discussion on MCAP? Is it Jeff? Okay, please.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Let me go ahead and share my screen with you all and do a quick check.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Crawford, if I may.
Yes, sir, please.
Just a brief frame here for the committee, in addition to what you laid out. Dr. Goltz and I really asked staff, again, to come here, give us a little taste of some of the deep dive we'll get at the full meeting, and ensure that we have that comprehensive list of things that we want to be looking into further. So just want to manage expectations. We did not ask Mr. Sanderson to come with that analysis here, but that we're going to do that at the full meeting. But I think he's got a little taste for us of some things he's working on.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay. And thank you, Dr. Michael, as well. Just a quick check. Everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just go ahead. And so when we come back to you all later this month for the full presentation, you're going to have a lot more bullets listed on the presentation outline. What we attempted to do for today's discussion is to give you a preview of one of the analyses that we've conducted, and then also share with you, based on board member feedback, what has been prepared or is being prepared in preparation for the longer meeting later this month. And so with this one, what we thought we would start with, because of the interest, is trying to highlight or showcase year over year change with our students. And so, and I'll step each of you through the analysis. We've done one for English language arts. We've also done another for mathematics. And what we were attempting to capture here is based on how students did in the prior year, what was their performance in the current year. And so you'll see a subtitle indicates for the high level bullet that in English language arts, for the year-to-year comparison, about half students who scored at level 1 or the lowest performance level on MCAP scored at a level 2 in 2024. And so let me kind of step you through. I'm going to start with the bottom of this illustration, and then I'll work my way to the top, and then we'll go into mathematics as well. And so what you'll see at the bottom, this represents 100% of testers in 2023. And so as an example at the bottom, all students that scored a level 1 in 2023, we wanted to know how did they do on the same content test in 2024. And so what this tells you is you have 50.5% of students that achieved level 1 in 2023. They also achieved the level 1 status in 2024. And the other half that we see, approximately 48.4%, represents students that achieved level 1 in last year, but now have moved up to level 2 status in the 2024 school year. So one of the takeaways, unfortunately and concerning with this, is the percentage of students, if they start at level 1 in year 1, it is pretty much almost very uncommon that they would achieve a passing score or at least a level 3 score in the subsequent year. And so what we're trying to understand is how many years in the stepping process, stepping up, when a student is not successful until they become successful. And so if you look at that next row, as an example, what you'll see is the performance most recently. And so 14.6% of students that achieved a level 2 in prior year actually went down to a level 1 in the current school year. The belly of those represents that of those we had approximately 66% of students that were a level 2 in 2023. They returned to level 2 status in 2024 or maintained that same performance level. But we do see approximately 1 in 5 or 19% of our students that were previously non-passers that scored level 2, but have since moved in 2024 up to the level 3 status or to the proficiency standard on MCAP. You'll see for level 3, the overwhelming majority of students maintain. You have approximately 3/4 of students, or 74.7%, that were level 3 in prior year and returned to a level 3 in current year. You see approximately 8% of students actually moved up to level 4 status that were previously a level 3 in the prior year. And we do have some share of students that were level 3 in 2023, but went down to a level 2. That's the 17.3% that you see. And then finally, for the highest performance level description that we have that students can achieve, that level 4, we had approximately half that maintained level 4 status in their most recent scoring, and approximately half, or a little under a half, at 48.8%, that went down to a level 3, still passing, but dropped from the level 4 status that they achieved in prior year to the level 3 status in the current year.
But just for the sake of the public, again, if you would just articulate what's the significance of level 1, 2, 3, 4? What should the public know when they're looking at these levels?
Yep, sure. Thank you for the question. So the MCAP assessment itself has essentially 4 cut scores, or 3, if you will. You have level 1, which would be not proficient, and beginning as a description. Level 2 is still not at the passing or the proficient standard, but it's a higher scoring than the level 1. In order to be considered a proficient or passing student on MCAP, they need to achieve either a level 3 status or a level 4 status. And level 3, you can, we call proficient standard, with level 4 coming in as the more advanced or mastery level of scoring on these tests. So on the next slide.
Before you go,
Yep,
from
sorry.
a policy standpoint, what does this mean? When we look at these data, we see some students, we see students that are at level 1. We see some that moved up. We see some that moved down. Is there any sort of broad policy perspectives that you want to share with the board about the meaning of what we're seeing? Is this what we would expect to see?
No, well, I would argue that ideally it would not be what we expect to see. In a ideal situation, you would have students, because you're going to have some level of variance on any assessment. Ideally, you would have a situation where students that previously achieved level 4 maintain that level 4 performance. They continue to achieve the highest standard. You would like to see, for students that previously achieved level 3, that you would have some movement up to level 4, but certainly you would hope that there would be no movement that would be regression or going down in the level 2. For the non-passing standards at level 1 and level 2, we would like to see more movement. I think as you stair step, and if you kind of go bottom right up to top left, these would be the indications where you're moving to level 2. So the 48.8% that moved up to level 2, we would hope that in the subsequent year, we would be seeing continued progression towards the passing standard within this. And so I think for me as an analyst looking at this information, it's concerning. I will forecast that the next slide with mathematics is even more concerning, with the really the flatness or the stability in performance for students based on prior scoring and where they end up achieving in the subsequent year.
What I'll do is just ask Mr. Sanderson to just go ahead and can go to the math, and then we will open it up for questions and comments. Well, actually, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and do the math. If there are any particular math questions, we'll take them. And then we'll then go to the final section where we're providing feedback or insights that we'd like to see the department address at the upcoming board meeting.
Yep. Okay, thank you. So for mathematics, same illustration as far as how we modeled this data, trying to compare 2023 and 2024. And so in order for a student to be included, they would have had to have test results from both test administrations. So that way we can chart what is the year-to-year change. The story with mathematics, obviously, hopefully level 1 stands out pretty quickly. If I was a student that achieved level 1 status in year 1, there is high likelihood that I will maintain that level 1 status. And that's represented by the 95.4% that you see. And so what that's telling you is, of those students that were non-passing and achieving the lowest performance level, they maintained that same performance level in the most recent testing. When you look at level 2, level 2 is not quite as pronounced, but a similar story in that 71.6% of students that were previously non-passing at a level 2 maintained that level 2 performance. You also had a share of 19.2% that were previously a level 2 performer, but went down to level 1 status. And then you have a small share at 9% that were previously non-passing that actually bumped up to the proficiency or level 3 status. And then the call out that we have here for level 3, with more than 2/3 of students who scored at level 3 maintain that same performance. And this would be one where we would like to see that number go down, but it go down because they are moving up to the level 4 status. And so they would still be passing, but they are achieving that master's standard. And then you'll see for level 4, a similar profile to what we saw with English language arts. It's not quite as evenly split between those maintaining their level 4 status with those that are going to level 3. But the overwhelming majority, as you'll see here, is that students that previously passed the test at a level 4 status continue to pass the test, either achieving level 3 or level 4 performance. And then on the final slide, I'll just do a quick walkthrough based on feedback that we received from you all in the previous board meeting and what we've been putting together and modeling for the data. The cohort proficiency trends, that's going to walk you through several cohorts of third graders at different points in time. And so as an example, we're going to illustrate how did a third grader do on English language arts, all the way up to how did they do on ELA 10. And so that would be one cohort that we're going to be able to share with you the performance over that period of time. We also have smaller periods of time where we're showing, as we get into the more recent cohorts, how they continue to progress up to the final test or most recent test that we have available for them. There was also interest in looking at some of the intersections between various student groups and specifically breaking down within race, ethnicity categories, those students that are participating in some of our service groups versus those that are not. So as an example, what is the performance of Hispanic students that are receiving special education services compared to the performance of Hispanic students that are not receiving special education services? And so we have a series of analyses that are connected with that. The next bullet for proficiency by low, medium, and high poverty schools, that is essentially a quartile analysis. And so what we did here was we grouped students based on their poverty concentrations, with low representing the lowest quartile or the schools with the least amount of poverty, up to high poverty schools, which would represent the top quartile of schools. And then after we created those groupings, then we looked at the performance for those 3 different categories based on English language arts and mathematics. For CSI, looking at our comprehensive schools for improvement, creating a category that aggregates their performance in isolation so that we can see the trends for these particular schools over a period of time. Likewise, we grouped community school based on their identification reason, so why they were identified as community schools, and then also what has been their historical performance these past 3 years. Schools with large changes, this one was a specific request, I believe, for the top 50 schools that had demonstrated change. And so we have that in development to be able to share with you all, and what was that rate of change for those schools demonstrating the largest gains. Changes by LEA and their proficiency. We'll have several report format tables with that information that will show you all 24 LEAs and what has been their progression these past 3 school years for NCAP testing. And then the last one on here, also looking at the lowest performance category, that performance level 1, broken out by students, and similar to what we showed you here in the aggregate, being able to see at more granular level what is the change, if any, over a period of time for students that achieve level 1 performance. And with that, I will open up any questions or feedback or direction for next steps in preparation for the September board meeting.
I think, Ms. Medina, forgive me, I didn't see you earlier. I believe you had a comment or question.
Yes, I just wanted, for my own clarification, was this timeline, when you say 23, 24, was that fall 23 to spring 24, or what's the timeline that we're looking at here?
So for this illustration, it would represent 2 academic school years. So it would be comparing the 2022-23 school year to the 2023-24 school year.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
Mr. Sanders, when are these tests administered during the school year generally?
Primary administrations occur in springtime. It's staggered because of the volume of testing, but typically it gets into the spring testing in March and carries through the end of the school year. It's a window because it's online testing, and so schools have opportunity to identify the specific testing days within that window, and also it allows for us to have higher participation because we're able to capture those students that may not be on the specific designated day, but could participate in an alternate makeup testing day.
Very good. The floor is now open for comments, suggestions from committee members and other board members, ideas or suggestions, additional data, additional analysis that you think would be really useful for the board to have for our September board meeting. I don't see everyone because maybe what I can do.
You want me to stop sharing?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Dr. Michael.
List looks great. A further analysis. I did want to not lose the opportunity in the analysis, Mr. Sanderson, you presented, if you don't mind putting up the 2 graphs again. There's a really important difference in this data that has significant implications for us as we look at supporting students that are struggling in particular, and the differences we're seeing in literacy and mathematics.
Yep.
Oh,
sorry. Yeah, let me try one more time. Okay.
so if we go back one more to the literacy slide,
Yep.
You'll see this unusual situation. Well, it's a situation with our level 1 students that about half of our level 1 students actually progress to become level 2 students the next year, which is consistent with our data as we see proficiency rates actually increase from elementary school to middle grades in literacy. But if you go to mathematics on the next slide, you'll see that 95% of students that perform at a level 1 in any given year stay in a level 1. And so, we have discussed the nature of how cumulative mathematics is. I think one of the questions that's going to be difficult for us to answer from the data, but germinates from this data, is our student getting stuck in level 1 because of how challenging math is to catch up, or is it because we don't have systematic interventions in place or have instructional approaches that bridge to grade level curriculum? So that's a question for us that we're going to have to dive into to figure as we work towards our math policy. But this is very concerning, right? That our students who are at level 1, their trajectory simply does not change in mathematics. And so something that we'll want to dive into, as we think about, we want to anchor back to this as we think about our math policy and our work moving forward.
And I just quickly want to add, this is Monica, that every district had a mathematics audit of their curriculum to ensure that it was aligned with the standards. So this does concern me.
Thank you.
May I ask, Jeff, I know that you mentioned in one of those bullet points that you all were tracking whether or not a student was receiving special education supports, but is that the only additional metric? Like, are we able to capture if students are receiving like the pullout from the reading specialist or the math specialist? Does that kind of stuff get tracked to see if any of those interventions are working or who's receiving those interventions?
The intervention level is going to be a challenge for us because most of that is not going to be a function of data collection and mandated reporting. Well, we certainly, for any of the service programs that students are eligible for, such as multilingual students, students with disabilities, economically disadvantaged students, those various programs that we do report data and collect data on, we can do any sort of intersection with those. But LEA interventions generally are not reported at the state level.
Thank you for that.
Ms. Chang, I believe you had a question or comment?
Yes, would you mind to move the slide to the graph? Yeah, one very fundamental question about the graph is that by looking at that, I know the title says 2023 to 2024, but from the explanation, it seems it's covered 2 school years, but I don't have a clear kind of mark and tells me which color is the school year 22 to 23 versus 23 to 24. So that's one question I have. And the second question is that I can see that blue PL1 is the level 1. So is this PL1 equivalent to the y-axis of 2023 level 1? And the PL2, like the sandstone color, is equivalent to the 2023 level 2 versus level 3 and level 4. Can we start off those 2 questions for clarification, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
So time permitting, so quickly on the vertical axis, this would represent where the students achieved in the prior school year. And so as an example, the lowest bar, the horizontal bar, that's 2023 level 1. This is all testers from 2023. And then inside of that bar, it's telling us how did they do in 2024. And so as an example of the students that achieved level 1 in the 2023 spring testing, 95% of them repeated that same performance in 2024. Mm-hmm. And so they return to that same performance category. The other question, if you remind me again, please, on the second question that you had.
And the PL1, the blue bar, equivalent to the level 1 on the y-axis. That's the same level we are referring to.
That's correct.
Okay. So my question is that if we look at the level 1 bar in this math performance for the school year 2023 to 24, that we say level 1 is 100% of students in the 2022 scoring level 1. But then 95.4% of students score level 1 the next school year. Yet there is a 4.3% of students upgrade or score a higher score to PL2. And there is a very slim orange. So there is a slim chance that some student, maybe less than 1% also, got scored PL3. Am I correct?
You are correct. It's actually 0.4% for that sliver.
Okay. So I was just more interested to see reversely say, what make those less than 5% of students pull out of the PL1 and advance to PL2, even some of them 0.4% advance to PL3. Is there any kind of drill down kind of data? So my question is what has been done differently for those small group of students? And then when you look at the PL2 level, they are 9.1%, the percentage kind of expand, to the PL3. The PL2 student in the prior year, scored to PL3 at a larger percentage. Those are very exciting. I know we all look at the chunk of it in our study to say, oh, what the data, try to tell us. But on the other end, yeah, we have a group of students from less than 5%. Now it's 9%, kind of pull themselves up to the next level. How do they do it different, or what differences or different strategies they do?
Would it be
I will just, if it's okay, Mr. Crawford,
Please.
these are really good questions, and these are the kinds of questions that we want to foster as we, it's actually this data, we can't answer that question with this data. And, there's limitations on it, but I think these are the types of questions that we ought to be asking and figure out how do we get different data, triangulate it with our school visits and other pieces so that we can dig down on the things that you're saying. That's the thing about data. There's a lot, we often come up with more questions that we can't answer. But that's what our job is to do, is to keep asking those questions and just keep digging, so we can get to that next level as we're figuring out how to improve outcomes for kids.
And yep. I promise this is one of my last questions, is that for the level 3, there's a tinge of blue, so there's probably less than 0.1%. I will just try to see if that's my eyes or the data. Could you confirm that?
So on the mathematics,
level 3 students performers kind of drop down to level 1.
You
There's
have
some blue line there. Okay, thank you.
0.2%, yes.
0.2. Thank you very much. And there's nothing on the level 4 drop down to level 1, right?
There's actually, it's hidden. You do have 0.4% of previous level 4 performers that did slide to level 2.
Oh, okay. Okay, but no reverse. That's great. Thank you.
Mr. Greer?
Thank you, President Crawford. Just almost as a follow-up to what Vice President Michael was saying, it would be interesting, Mr. Sanderson, to see if we could see where the moves are happening by LEA, like when we're seeing an increase or a decrease. Because if we're going to layer that into some of our school visits, I think being armed with some of that information and knowing where we have some pockets of success could be very intriguing, or where we want to target a little bit of additional support could also be. And that's back to the early question that President Crawford asked about how does this impact policy. I think that can help to inform us about where we would incentivize or direct resources, such as really targeting to make sure that some of the new, like the online tools are available or not available, but are being picked up and utilized by some of the LEAs that are struggling in these areas, both in math and ELA.
Thank you. One last, are there any other comments, any questions, anything? Just ask one other thing related to ELA. Is there any way to overlay the results of the ELA with the interventions that we have been deploying over the last couple of years? We have provided funding to train teachers in the science of reading. We have the literacy coaches. We have these various initiatives underway. And the question I would just have, as you look at these data, is there any way to then overlay the MCAP with the interventions? Do we see, for example, where there's been some movement, some positive movement, maybe by an LEA or by a school, that we would see that 100% of the covered teachers were trained. I don't know whether you have data like that, but it would be interesting to see whether we can start to see the impact of these interventions in terms of outcomes for children.
I think we can also, one of the things I was thinking as you all were speaking is, since we are in these two analyses looking at effectively adjacent year testing 3 through 8, it might be as a next step for us also to look at, do we have any frequency of where some of that growth is occurring most often? And so is the growers that we are seeing that are moving from one performance level to another, is it happening from one grade up to another grade more often? Then we'll see.
This is excellent, excellent. I think you've identified the right topics, and as we dive deeper into this, and again, as you've been doing, is help the board frame the policy issues. What should we be focusing on? What should we be looking at in terms of policy to be able to help discern the impact of the interventions? And also identify those areas where we can help, where there is some issue or some concern, where the board might be able to intervene to assist LEAs on some of these challenging areas. Great, great, great. Thank you so much. Excellent.
Sure.
Appreciate it. If we have no other comments related to MCAP, what I'm going to do now is to read the statement that will allow us to go into executive session to discuss the FY26 budget request to DBM. All of this is embargoed. The information that we will discuss in the next portion of the meeting has to remain embargoed and not be shared outside of the board. Pursuant to Section 3-305B13 of the General Provisions Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, the State Board of Education's Transformation and Finance Committee will adjourn to a closed session to discuss the following: the review of the FY 2026 confidential DBM budget estimates and requests. The floor is now open for a motion to allow us to go into executive session. That would be from our board, from our committee members who have.
Yep, I make a motion.
And then
seconded
by Dr. Golson.
No, I made the motion and Chin Chin seconded.
Okay, okay, got it. Thank you. And with that, what we'll do now then is we'll now vote. This is for the board members who are members of this committee. All in favor, please say aye and raise your hand. Aye.
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 Looks unanimous. Okay, so we will now dial into the executive session portion of the meeting. Members of the public, we appreciate you joining us today, and we will see you